Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. At this time, I'll call the Tuesday, August 15th, 2023 work session of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners to order and ask Commissioner Lewis Weatherspoon if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you for another day and the many blessings that you've given us. We ask that you continue to bless Harnett County, state of North Carolina, and our nation. Lord, be with our first responders, be with our law enforcement, and be with our military personnel. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll get this started with a request regarding the approval of North Carolina DOT capital grant agreement. Mr. Barry Blevins.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, and the new look, I love it. First time up here since. So let me just give a little background. This is an annual requirement for the board to approve our agreements for administration and capital. It's usually both together and they're separated. Last December, December 5th of 2020 or 2022, it's a tongue tire. The board approved our application for fiscal year 24, which is now this agreement you'll have before you. For the capital, the total budget for fiscal year 25 is $4,973. The federal portion is 80%, the state is 10, and the local match is 10. So the local match for the county is $40,596, which we've already have budgeted in this year's budget. With the capital, we plan to purchase 3 raised roof vehicles at $85,000 per piece. This also includes the fiscal year 24 also includes the fiscal year 22 vehicles that we couldn't purchase before. So they included it in this year's budget. We're hoping we can get those ordered and received this year, although we'll have an extension of another year for it. And the reason is, as we all know, getting vehicles is pretty tough. That's the reason why the fiscal year 22 were delayed. These 3 vehicles will not have a lift. So these are liftless vehicles, so you can't put handicap on them. However, we are going to get one LTV with a lift, which is the LTV. If you see the bigger ones with the bigger top, we will purchase that with it. It also includes $20,000 and $20,973 to install an automatic gate. If you've been by Hart, you see these gates are pretty large. We had an elderly group of folks that work for us at 3:30 in the morning, and they're having to push the gate. So we think that was the right thing to do, and luckily they approved it. So I think Chance is going to be his first task is to get those things ordered and get that going for us. Again, we're asking the board to approve and sign the agreement.
Any questions or comments?
I got a question. Is the amount for the county, is it $40,596 or $40,598?
596 is what I have from the agreement.
Okay, we need to clarify that because what's on our agenda is $598.
Oh, is it? I got the documents here. Let me verify. Which is actually on the agreement. My correction. Yes, sir, you're correct. Thank you for catching that. It is $40,598. So my note screwed up on that one.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I was trying to get through here without a bum.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Blevins? Pleasure of the board to add this to the consent agenda for next. Go ahead and add this next week. Thank you very much, sir. And I have you up again for another administrative branch.
For the administration grant, the FY '24, the same grant, but administration. And I'm going back and verifying my numbers. Thank you, Commissioner. You're spot on, sir. Okay, so the total budget for the admin is 250,000. Of course, this is already budgeted in our current FY '24 budget. Federal portion on this is 80%. The state portion is 5%. And the local match is 15. The local match is $57,188. These funds are used for administrative costs related to operating the system. It actually budgets and pays for four administrative positions: the manager, an admin assistant, a position called transit assistant, and a processing assistant. It also pays for things like uniforms, office supplies, required training, airtime for our radios, comm equipment, and advertising. We do our advertising mostly over the radio. I will say that we asked for more money, but the DOT didn't give us any more money besides that. But it does meet our requirements for administration. Is there any questions?
Comments? Pleasure of the board. Add this on the agenda as well. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank y'all.
Move on to item number 5, discuss a request to approve multiple service contracts for FY '24. Mr. Steve Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Last work session, I came before you to talk about getting approval from the board for multiple service contracts. I think that has to do more or less with the signature authority that the county manager has of anything over $100,000. So I think and we've got several contracts, service contracts that are over $100,000 throughout the whole year. So that's why I've been coming before you. I think item 16 may address some of this that Chris is going to talk to you about a little later, but right now we need approval for those contracts that exceed that amount.
Questions or comments for Mr. Ward?
This is normal operating contracts.
Absolutely. Repairing pumps, all sorts of items, electrical items, you name it, everything that's in our system.
Pleasure of the board to add this to the consent agenda as well for approval.
Yes.
We'll add this as well. Clerk.
Thank you.
And you're up again for item number 6, sir.
Okay, if you remember, probably about 6 months ago, I talked to you about write-offs, and I had been coming quarterly to request those write-offs. That's something that the auditors requested of us years ago that we've been doing to address bad debt. So pretty common stuff. Most of our bad debt comes from rental accounts. Owners do a great job, basically, and renters do too, but you're going to have a certain amount of bad debt in our business. So we're required to come to the board and ask to get that bad debt written off our books. We're still able to recover some of that debt through things like debt set off. And when somebody comes back into our system again, we have a record of that previous past debt, so we're able to recover quite a bit of that. So this is for, we're doing it every 6 months now instead of every 3 months. So I'm here requesting that at this time.
Sir. Any questions or comments?
What you're telling us is even though if we write it off today, they come back into the system December or November, you can hold them to the fire on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And anytime there's bad debt over 90 days, we submit that to North Carolina Debt Set Off. So if they receive any kind of refund from a state income tax refund, we have priority to receive those funds that they owe us.
Pleasure of the board.
Yes.
Add this as well. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7, discuss a request for permission to apply for and if awarded, receive a state aid from North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources, the State Library. Miss Angela McCullough.
Good morning. So each year, the North Carolina General Assembly appropriates money for public libraries throughout the state of North Carolina. These funds are intended to promote and aid public libraries throughout North Carolina and kind of equalize us. And so we're just asking for permission to apply for and if awarded to receive this year's state aid grant. We estimate it to be $191,144, and there's no matching funds. We just need signatures on the application.
Any questions or comments? No?
No.
Consent agenda, pleasure of the board. Ask for approval.
Yes.
Next week as well for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Discuss a request for approval of the Greer Group as a part-time temp staffing agency for part-time election workers. Ms. Janice Lane.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think on your desk you should have an updated agenda item, so we had some additions to that, some additional information. So this morning I'm coming to you from the HR department requesting that the Board of Commissioners select the Greer Group as a part-time staffing agency, and they will provide payroll services for the part-time seasonal election workers for the county. The staffing agency would assume the payroll responsibilities and the workers' compensation liability and onboarding. We placed an RFP out a couple of weeks ago. We had 4 responses. And out of that, we chose the Greer Group, and that was based on their references that I got and that they have experience with another local board of elections for another local county. But I do want to point out this new process would not affect the appointment processes for any of the judges, nor would it affect the recruitment process right now for any election workers. And nor would it affect any of the assigned locations. That still would be directed by the Board of Elections. So I did want to point that out. However, in the future, as our county grows, and sometimes we may feel that we may fall short of finding election workers, the staffing agency would be able to help us recruit and get more candidates to come in and work the election. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. And then on the second page, what I added was the recommendations from the finance officer. So the use of this for election worker activity would provide many benefits to the county, and 2 significant benefits would be the reduced impact on the Human Resources Department for onboarding activities and the liability for the workers' comp piece. Also for internal controls, with potential issues associated with the payment for the election workers by the finance department. So it does affect multiple departments within the county, and it would alleviate some of those internal control issues. So the dollar amount, I'm sure you guys are wondering how much that's going to cost. Looking at last year's total payroll that we paid out for election workers, that was probably one of the highest years, and that was for fiscal year 22-23. We paid out around $140,000. So with a 26.3% markup, that would cost us around $30,000. And we feel, in working with the finance department, our legal department, HR, and we involved IT, that really one worker's compensation claim for a hurt back while they're lifting equipment, a car accident while they've loaded the equipment up and driving to an assisted living facility for those citizens to vote. So one car accident, one back injury, one knee injury would definitely cost probably more than that $30,000. So, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you all, but the Board of Election probably would address this, but I'm asking you, have you all come up with a plan? Are you working with the Board of Election to come up with the plan for the
Yes, ma'am.
the
Okay,
ID?
yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
for citizens. When is that going to be made public? 'Cause
the Board of Elections, so the director was involved in these meetings as well. I left her out of that list of departments, but she was a part of the meetings as well. And really, this doesn't affect her because she is still recruiting and sending out the letters the same way. So none of this will affect what her current processes are like. And I wished she was here today, but she is at a conference. So, but we're not changing anything that the Board of Elections currently does as far as the selection process, getting election workers in. The only thing we're doing is not putting them in our payroll system for the county. They would enroll with the staffing agency and they would assume that payroll responsibility and the workers' compensation piece. So we're not changing anything from the Board of Elections.
Okay,
Chairman?
I understand that. That's,
Mhm.
Valerie, I understand that. But I'm saying, is there a plan? If they start working on a plan for people that don't have the ID, to be able to get assistance for ID?
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got here, County Manager.
Yes, I think Mike Morrow can answer that question. He works with Claire a lot, and they're working through that ID process.
Yeah, the identification process, the State Board of Elections hasn't given them final information yet, and that's actually where she is today, trying to get all that information.
Okay.
But they have been working on a plan and a machine and so forth to
Yeah,
create the
machine
ID.
works, all of it meets the current criteria. They're not sure what the final criteria is going to be.
Okay.
So, but it does work, and we could print them today if we had all the information.
Okay, but when you get that information, will you let us know?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I need.
we'll remind the director to do that.
No problem.
Because it's gonna be totally different than most citizens have ever seen
They're
before.
discussing that.
So that is very important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. What did you say the markup is?
26.3. I'm sorry, 23.6. I said that totally backwards. 23.6.
Thank you.
Numbers are getting everybody.
I was like, we're having trouble with numbers this morning, apparently. We can't get it straight.
Got it going on today.
Any other
Get your numbers
questions?
right.
All right, so are there any other questions or comments in regard to the staffing agency? Pleasure of the board.
Let's put it on for further discussion. Yeah.
You'd like to put it on for further discussion? We're going to have this as a separate line item next week for further discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Moving on, item 9, Development Services Briefing on upcoming public hearings.
Hi there. Good
I
morning,
was about to say,
Commissioners.
I was like, man, Mark, you got some hair now. It won't be the last.
I'm Sarah Arbor with the Harnett County Planning Services, and we have 3 items that we are briefing you on this morning, 2 rezonings and 1 text amendment. So our first case is Plan 23070001. The applicant is Mr. Andy Priolo, and he is applying to rezone a portion of 22-acre property from RA 30 to commercial. The property is located at 190 MacArthur Road in Broadway. It's at the intersection of US 421 North and MacArthur Road. So the property is approximately 22 acres and fronts on US 421 North and MacArthur Road. The section that he is looking to rezone is the portion north of Rosser Pittman. It kind of serves as a kind of perfect dividing line there. So he'll section that off and rezone that portion of the property. The property is currently used for agricultural purposes. The remainder of the property has a single-family home located on it, as well as some agricultural activities. Surrounding land uses consist of single-family residences, a manufactured home park, and agricultural activities. For utilities available for the property, there is public water available, no sewer, so it will be relying on private septic system. The traffic counts there are provided for your review. The intersection of US 421 North and MacArthur Road is traffic controlled with a signal. Looking at the zoning district compatibility, you can see this is an area that's predominantly RA 30. There are a couple of commercial parcels there just to the east. The land use classification map is the reason that staff is supporting this rezoning request, as the property sits in one of our development nodes. It's rural centers, so that encourages small scale commercial centers for economic development. There are several photos of the site that have been provided for your review there. tried to provide photos from each road front. So, as stated, through staff's evaluation, we did support this request to rezone this property. The reasons being that we found the impact to be reasonable based on the land use. It's obviously the request to rezone to commercial is compatible with the land use. We found that it would enhance the public health, safety, and general welfare due to the potential site improvements that be required. And it does not need to be evaluated for small scale rezoning. The planning board on August 7th did also recommend approval unanimously 4-0 for this change of zoning, and there was nobody present at the meeting to speak in opposition. Okay.
Go ahead and add that next week for hearing.
Okay.
More
If there's no questions from the board, I'll move on to our next rezoning case.
questions on that one?
All the way around.
All right, so our next rezoning case is case number plan 2307-0003. The applicant is Triangle Land Partners, LLC, and they're requesting to rezone a 73-acre portion of a 95-acre property. It's located at 4155 NC 27 West in Lillington. So the request to rezone is from the RA 30 zoning district to the RA 20R zoning district. If you look at the vicinity map, there's currently the portion of the property that's right there south of that red line. That portion of the property is already zoned RA 20R. It is a portion of the property that contains some wetlands. There's some floodplain located there. It's closer to the Upper Little River sort of passage just to the south of this property, as well as you can see, there's a branch that runs across the southern portion of that property there. So there's an area of is environmentally sensitive. So currently the subject property is used as a rural home site as well as for agricultural purposes. Surrounding land uses consist of single family residences. There's a lot of agricultural activity out here as well as there's a church nearby as well. So the property, as stated, does have 2 zoning designations. It also has 2 land use classifications. One is the agricultural and rural residential, which is a big majority of the property, and then a smaller portion of the property is that environmentally sensitive area. So with the agricultural, rural residential land use, typically what we're looking at is densities of 1 unit per acre or less. It's designed to kind of blunt the impacts of the residential development with the agricultural activities that are going on in that area. As far as services available to the site, there is water, there's an 8-inch water line, and there's no sewer for this area. So it would be reliant on a private septic systems. And one thing, staff wanted to point out here, we have it here in the packet, is we've included our compatibility chart from our Unified Development Ordinance. And what this is here to show is that, so in the RA 30 zoning district, which is a majority of the property, the current zoning, you can get down to the 20,000 square foot lot size minimum, which is the base lot size minimum in the requested rezoning. They can do that based on the zoning, based on the land use, as well as there's water in the vicinity. So if say the applicant were to come in here and develop this as a residential subdivision, they provided street trees, sidewalk, curb, and gutter, they could get down to that 20,000 square foot lot size minimum. You look a little further down in the chart, you see the RA 20R, so 20,000 is that base. They could potentially get down to the 15,000 square foot lot size minimum if this property were rezoned, if the applicant did the street trees and sidewalk, curb, and gutter. All right, there are several pictures of the site as well that have been provided for your review. So based on staff's evaluation, staff did not recommend approval of this request to rezone. Staff found that the impact to the surrounding community would be unreasonable. The rezoning could potentially allow for higher intensity uses as well as a greater density that would be incompatible with the area. Staff found that the request for rezone was incompatible with the underlying land use, agricultural, rural, residential, as it could potentially permit a higher density than what that land use is designed for. Staff found that the proposal does not enhance or maintain the public health, safety, and general welfare. It could potentially allow for higher intensity land uses, residential developments with more units, which is incompatible with the development patterns and the agricultural activities in the vicinity. The staff found that it did not need to be evaluated for a small scale rezoning. At the planning board meeting, the planning board voted unanimously 4-0 to recommend denial of the rezoning. The planning board stated that the desired lot size in the requested zoning district could be permitted in the current zoning district using our current regulations, or perhaps even designing it as a PUD. There was one citizen who didn't quite speak in opposition, but they had concerns that they expressed that the development would increase the water runoff and adversely affect his family's farm. His farm is immediately adjacent there, just to the east of this property, and is also downhill. The staff is open for any questions.
Rezoning. This for a public hearing next week.
Okay, thank you all.
You got one more for a text amendment for land use contract.
Yes, sir. Good evening, board members. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Sykes, my services. We have a small text amendment. It's basically just a cleanup. As you know, everything that's listed in the use table is items that typically come up in the county or exist in the county. Every possible use can't be listed. So we have kind of a catch-all that says, existing in the ordinance, that says, basically it says if you can see one that's listed, and then it would be basically the same or staff's interpretation. So basically what we're doing here is taking our policy and then codifying into the ordinance. It says that if something comes up and is not specifically listed, we can find the best fit, or an applicant can submit a text amendment as well. And that's always been, because sometimes you can't just say it's not outright not allowed. So you have to basically work with the applicant. Staff worked with our legal department as well as the School of Government just to try to see how the best add this language. And again, it's kind of the policy we've always gone with to find the best fit and or create a text amendment or submit a text amendment. So we're kind of, that's why it looks a little bit more wordier than it is, but it's basically just spelling out the process that we've followed throughout the years. Yes, sir.
This is the text amendment for the concern that Commissioner Morris had a couple of months ago. We were waiting until we had enough cases to go to get in and bring it up. And so if you can remember that, I know it's been a couple of months, but that's what this is too.
Many of you may remember that we had some questions about if the code was silent, then it was deemed not permissible. And there's case law that's come out in the last few months that prohibits that, and it sounds like his text amendment here will clarify that issue.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Planning board did recommend approval, and staff did as well.
We'll put this on for a public hearing next week as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, discuss an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan contract to include retail strategies. Mark Coley and Mark and Coley.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Hope everybody is well this morning. First of all, let me thank each of you for your support and approval of the composition plan. Mark's going to just briefly go through that, kind of tell you kind of where we're at, what's going on, and he actually needs a couple of members of the planning board to serve on the steering committee for that. So we're fixing to kick that off. You want to go ahead and do that now, and then I'll talk a little bit about retail strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. The comprehensive plan, we're well and on our way. We've had several meetings so far with the consultant, and we like what's happening so far. Of course, we're early on in the process. They're gathering data and doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing. On our end, we are starting to put together our stakeholders group and our working groups, our internal groups, and all these different things. And so what we're actually not looking for members of the planning board, we're actually looking for 2 members maybe of this board that would be willing or has interest in being part of that. So it doesn't have to be decided today if you guys want to think about it. The commitment is not that bad. It's you'll probably have what I would guess will be about 4 meetings throughout the process. Where you would hear, what we're working on, exactly what we're doing with the plan, and then you would be able to offer your input in those cases too. As a board, I know Commissioner Weatherspoon asked yesterday where we were at on different things, but I think it's important to know that we'll be coming to this board regardless throughout the process. Maybe not as many times as the stakeholders group, but at the same time you would be involved obviously through the process, because we want to keep it's important to us, and I know it's important for you all to be updated along the way, so we just don't get to the end of it and say, hey, here it is, please approve it. So you will receive updates periodically regardless if that, but it would, I think it's important that if we have somebody who or some of you folks who are our leaders to actually serve on the on that working group for us to help champion the project and let us know going along the way, hey, this makes sense. This is what I'm hearing from our board, and telling us this is what we're going in the right direction as far as the comp plan is considered. Other than that, the biggest thing we have coming up, we have a kickoff tomorrow. Actually, it's really internal for departments to kind of who have sections of the ordinance. And then we'll go on a tour of the county so the consultants can see all these things in real life, what we're talking about, so they can actually get their eyes on it. And I think it helps them get a better understanding of some of the concerns or some of the questions that we have. So that'll be happening tomorrow. Other than that, I know that Coley, I think what he's getting ready to talk to you about as far as bringing in retail strategies, I'll go ahead and cover what I consider my end on that. When we were going through the process of the actual talking about a meeting we were going through, we realized that one of the consultants mentioned that they use data from retail strategies to help them make decisions. And they mentioned, I think it was Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
Clayton used that. So anyway, Coley was familiar with the group, and so he started started meeting with those folks with retail strategies, and it really does seem like it could help us along the way. I know a large part of the comprehensive plan is for us to make a decision on where are our best opportunities for retail or commercial in general. And that's kind of what they do. And I thought that it made perfect sense that we marry our land use plan with a group that can basically look at data and say, this is your best opportunities for commercial throughout the county and all sorts of places. So it's probably not something that happens all the time. It just makes logical sense in my head, I guess, and I think it does with Coley too. And it's a good opportunity because obviously we have a ton of rooftops in this county, and we're wanting commercial. So, and I understand that is a big part of what the comp plan is hopefully going to do. It's going to show us areas and give us a blueprint for how we would want to proceed with our commercial aspirations going forward. So we believe that this could help in that regards. And like I said, that it's a no-brainer in my opinion. You take and it says, hey, the retail makes sense here, and then we make sure that the land use plan says
that's where it should be also. So that's kind of our thought to it. And then there's a whole host of other, what I would call economic development type stuff that Retail Strategies does, and Coley will cover that, but that's mine.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the comp plan, any of that?
I just want to say it certainly makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
It makes sense, and it's something that needed to been done a long time ago.
I agree. I agree. Well, we're very fortunate that this board and county manager and everybody, it blows my mind. I said it the other day, we were in a meeting, that number one, you understand the importance of it, and number two, your willingness to make it happen. So we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. All right, so that kind of leads into the segment of retail strategies and who they are, what they do, and kind of what we're recommending this morning. So Brent and Mark and Jay and I have been spending a lot of time over the last few months in our region, most recently with Chatham, Lee, Johnson, and Wake County. Looking at the growth corridors, looking at commercial, looking at manufacturing, looking at industrial. Obviously, economic development is at the top of your list, and Commissioner McCoy, you're exactly right. That's one thing that we're kind of pressing on. So I have used retail strategies in the past, and I've been very impressed with this group. And now seeing what they did with the town of Clayton, like Mark mentioned, and marrying up that, as far as it just makes a ton of sense to match the strategies that they can bring. They do a 100-day study, and they come in and they ride every road. They look at medium income, disposable income. They look at traffic counts, everything you can possibly imagine. You will get deliverables after 100 days. So after that 100 days is up, what happens then? Well, they stick with us for over a year. And so what we do is look at vacant properties, and then they are a real estate company. So what they do is scour the country. They go to all these venues, and they say, hey, X commercial vendor, Harnett County is up and coming. Here's what they've got. Here's the data to back it up. And they marry up that as far as the vacant properties are concerned. So what that does, it actually matches with your strategic plan that you adopted last February with the pillars of economic development. And what was really cool about this, there's 7 objectives on this, and it checks the box on 5 of them. Provide well-planned communities with smart, sustainable growth strategies. That's what your land use plan is doing. It's that guiding document for the growth that is happening here in this county, not only from a residential standpoint, but I've heard each of you loud and clear talk about commercial, setting land aside for manufacturing and industrial, and that's what this is going to do. Attract and retain diverse and viable tax base with increased commercial and retail. Chairman, all of you really, we've talked about the leakage. We talk about what's happening where people shop in Wake and Cumberland in different areas. What this will do is give you documents that are on the ground in order to get the sales tax to stay here in Harnett. It also leverages partners and stakeholders to enhance economic development capacity, which I know is at the top of your list. So basically, what you've got in front of you is a 100-day study. They come in and give you deliverables, as I mentioned, and then they stick with you. So it matches your strategic plan, your master plans, your visioning plans of where the board sits, and a plan of action incorporated with our comp plan. It gives our rural unincorporated areas more exposure and identity. I've heard that loud and clear with the western end as well as the northwest end of what's happening as far as Northwest Harnett now is starting to feel that pressure of the growth in residential, and it can help with a little bit more commercial activity there. It adds and saves jobs. One thing that the board has expressed is economic development opportunities, job creations, and sales tax exposure. And that's one thing that I feel that this does a good job of. It's an outreach to at least 30 retailers to our county after the study is complete. You have this in your packet. You can see the areas. They're out of Alabama, but you can see the areas that they have done in North Carolina. I was really impressed with what they did in Lumberton. I feel that Dunn is on the cusp of that with upgrading I-95, with looking at landscaping, lighting, wayfinding. And I just think it's a tremendous opportunity for our county to partner and marry up to get the data that we need to incorporate that back into our comp plan. I know that's a lot, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the plan because it seems that we are now going in the right direction. We got to do something. Don't discount it's going to be nothing but rooftops. And rooftops can't pay all of the bills. I mean, I just don't see it doing it because what was needed gonna continue to fall back on the citizens too.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Totally,
retail outset the taxes for the citizens.
totally agree.
So I hope it works. I think it's a good plan, and we'll see where we go with it.
Well, thank you for those comments.
I do have one thought I just like to get a little feedback on.
Sure.
What type of plans or discussion has there been regarding involvement of the Economic Development Partnership in this development of land use plan, as well as this study on retail?
It's
within
kind
our
of
county?
interesting you mentioned that, Commissioner Matthews. We actually had that discussion yesterday as far as doing the interviews for our Economic Development Director. What we want to do a better job of is working stronger with development services, working stronger with our water and sewer, and having at least, quarterly, maybe bi-monthly meetings as far as getting everybody on the same page. Totally agree with your concept about where we're at. We're not on islands here. We're working together as a team, and I think we do need to do a better job of that. To answer your question, there's going to be a whole lot more meetings, a whole lot more involvement where everybody knows exactly where we're at.
Thank you. That's what I really wanted to hear. I think totally in my opinion, I think one of our failings over the years has been a lack of communication and working together in
Yes.
efforts to attract business and industry to our county. And I want us to get on that page where we have that communication and that camaraderie as far as that one goal that we're trying to
Totally
accomplish.
agree. You've not only got the county as a whole, you've got the alliance you're dealing with on 95,
Right.
and it's just a matter of communicating and meeting more in hand and understanding what you're up against, what you can improve upon, and how we can rise up together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Chairman, I have one, like, Coley, if you could cover where this money is coming from for
Yeah, I'm
this
sorry.
project,
Yeah.
and then also that you've reached out to the towns to offer, they could piggyback on that.
That's why he's county manager too. Very important question. So basically, when we came before you, there was X amount put into the comp plan budget. We still have a little bit of money available for that, where that would encompass this as a $65,000 study. I have been in touch with all of the county town managers and the planners. We actually had a very good meeting last week with all the planners in Harnett County. To your point, I think we need to do a better job of that. There's so many satellite annexations happening. We're growing together, and we've got to know what one another are doing. So I have asked Retail Strategies if you as a board want to approve this, and they have looked at the townships of how they could incorporate more into this. So they have given them a very, very cut rate that I think is a no-brainer for them to get that data. So we're kind of taking the base of this. Obviously, Harnett County is a unique county as far as the mass 600 square miles. We have water and sewer availability, but majority of our land is unincorporated. So we're trying to get the 15-minute village setting. We're trying to incorporate all that. So if you so choose to approve this and move forward, I will reach back out to each town and I will hook them up with Retail Strategies for that cut rate for them to move forward as well. Thank you for bringing that up.
I have a question on that. You could talk about, what is it, 80% of our county is unincorporated?
There's about 26,000 with the municipalities. You're about 138,000 right now. So
Is there any way to bring them into the unincorporated areas into this plan?
Yeah, that's kind of what we want to do with this, as far as how the comp plan is set up, that we take this data and then you as a board will look at how you want that land use to unfold, whether that's residential, commercial, or industrial. So that gives you the data that you need in order to keep the sales tax in Harnett County. So that's the whole goal of what we're trying to accomplish with marrying up this company with our land use.
Yeah, I may jump in quick.
Yeah.
When this kind of first all started, we were looking at the leakage. Well, it started from a question of the leakage down on the western side, which I think it came back to be over $1 billion.
She had to run that 3 times because she did not realize it was over $1 billion.
So
over $1
what they
billion.
look at is when she has, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, she has cell phone data. They have a software. And when you've got your cell phone with you, they track you. So they know exactly where you're shopping, what you're buying, where you're coming from. They know where stuff is leaking. There's a map that she can show instantaneously and show you exactly every bit of the retail that's leaving this county. So it's not only from the western end, but it's from northwest and everywhere else in between.
And that is exactly what I was gonna say. It's not only from the western part of this county.
Yeah.
Northwest is growing so
That's
fast
so
now.
she is going to
And there's
look
a
at
huge
all.
leak in there.
That's right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's what we were looking at was the northwest side and the western side at first, and then we looked at the county as a whole and brought in the other municipalities with the cut rate and all, and we think as a county, everybody can benefit through this program. So.
That's right. That's right.
Well, it seems to me that if even a portion of, or a small portion of the return on investment were to come as a result of this effort, that it would more than
pay for itself.
satisfy the initial investment that would be required.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions, comments? Pleasure of the board to add this on the consent agenda for next week.
Yes.
Go ahead and add this consent agenda next week as well. Matt.
Really appreciate your support. Thank you for your time this
Thank you. I
morning.
appreciate it. Moving on to discuss a request for approval of contract amendment with Smith Gardner. Mr. Chad Bean, how you doing?
Good morning. How's everyone this morning? Good. This is a request for Solid Waste Department to renew a service agreement with Smith Gardner. They provide all of our engineering services at both landfill locations. We've been very satisfied with their services. We look to them for guidance a lot of times with water monitoring, any permitting that's required by the state, those type things that we rely on them for. Much like what Mr. Steve Ward referred to earlier, this does exceed the 100,000 threshold, so that's the main reason we're before you today. It's in the amount of $135,000, not to exceed $135,000. And I'll be glad to field questions if you have that.
As I asked him, this is a standard contract y'all use every year.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure of the board to add this to the consent agenda as well.
Yes.
Go ahead and add this consent agenda for approval next week.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Discuss the request for approval of Neals Creek Park Development, the project ordinance. Mr. Carl Davis, good morning, sir.
How y'all doing? So what you have before you is project ordinance and a contract for design services for a master plan at Neals Creek Park. Just a little bit of history on Neals Creek. That is actually one of our first parks we had in Harnett County. That and Barbecue Creek Park was built in 1975 to about 1978. They were built during that time with some grant money. Both are adjacent to schools. We redid Barbecue Creek Park back in 2010 through 2012 and have not done any. We've done small updates to Neals Creek Park, but nothing large. As y'all know, obviously the growth in Northwest Harnett is coming in, so everything's changing up there as far as what people want. So we feel like it's time to redesign that master plan or redesign that park and really started looking at things like access points and parking for those sites. Right now, the access point for Neals Creek Park is going through Harnett Central High School to get to the park or through the middle school to get to the park. So we're looking at doing that. In 2018, we did expand over to the middle school, and so we maintained the middle school facilities also over there in partnership with the schools. The schools do have priority over those sites, so any of their athletic facilities or any of their use during the day, they actually have the priority there, and then we take over during the afternoon and into the night for our use. Obviously, this master plan would use the school system, the public, and staff input to come up with a new plan. During that process, we did go through an RFQ process to find an engineering firm for the design. Had 3 people to respond. we used development services, our staff, and our Parks Advisory Committee to review those plans. They came up with Withers Ravenel as the group that we selected for that site. So that's what you have before you today is a contract with them to start the services for design of that master plan. It also includes a cost estimate to help us plan for future developments. So obviously this is just the master plan, not renovation or anything else. So we'll have a cost estimate there, as well as they will write a grant for us for Part F if we decide we want to go that direction. And that was a $65,000 fee for the master plan.
Comments?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On that park, I'm very familiar with that park. So, with all these new plans that you're planning and all, is the interest of that park still gonna be coming through the school?
No, ma'am. Our plan right now is to take it off of Highway 210. And come in that way and alleviate the schools from any traffic going through the school system to get to the park. It'll also open up parking for their athletic events too. So right now, for example, with the high school, everybody goes to the high school and they park, but the parking is actually in foul territory. So anybody that's playing, like most people can't even park closer to the fields because they have danger of a foul ball hitting their car. So most people are even parking farther away. This our original plan, which actually will come through the design process to make sure it does work for this, would be to come off of 210 and have a centralized parking that would be there for the middle school and the high school.
That sounds good. I mean, that means you're gonna have to put a road through there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanna know, is there any other plans to do anything to the rest of the parks? Because I know funds have come in for the parks.
Well, the design process will take into, it'll use, like I said, public input. So we'll ask the community what they want. We'll ask the school system kind of make sure it works with their plans and their future planning, and then also staff plans of what we see kind of in the trends throughout North Carolina, what people are wanting to kind of decide the new amenities for that park.
Well, how did the school system get involved in the parks? I mean, I understand the park up there, but the other parks, I don't see how the school system have any involvement in that.
Well, this is just for Neals Creek Park, which is
that's what I want to hear you say.
This master plan is just for Neals Creek Park, which is adjacent to the Harnett Central Middle and High School. So that's why they're going to be heavily involved, because they do have a decent amount of use at the facility.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Pleasure of the board to add this for approval.
Yeah.
Luke?
It's needed.
Go ahead and add this for approval next week as well, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, discuss a request to approve Mosley Architects for Department of Social Services outfit and Sally Fouts. Morning.
Good morning. So just to brief y'all, just a quick reminder. So in the original ARPA funding plan, as well as the funding plan that you all approved on this past April 3rd, we budgeted about $1.6 million for the $1.6 million of ARPA funds for the upfit of the shell space in the DSS second floor extension. So the last time, whenever this extension was added a few years back, the idea was to leave this as the shell space until it was needed to be used. The space needs assessment identified that it would be best suited for additional offices for the DSS staff. So considering how much staff they have gained through the pandemic, as well as just the need for more workspace, considering there were so many to begin with, it is now time to move forward with creating more offices in this space. So again, the eligibility for this this project is ARPA eligible because we will be providing more space, which falls under public health concerns. So anyway, currently it is an unfinished shell space, and we will just need to add offices, cubicles, meeting rooms, storage rooms, etc. And so we went through the RFQ process. We interviewed 3 really wonderful firms, and it was a hard decision, but we do recommend moving forward with Mosley Architects due to their experience with similar buildings, similar renovations, specifically with DSS buildings, and as well as their experience working with ARPA-funded projects. So that's very helpful. So they will, if approved, they will help create a design for this space, and then we will continue with bidding out the construction phase separately. And that process will also be using ARPA funds. So due to the RFQ process, we don't have a number yet attached to this contract, but we are available for further questions.
When will you have the numbers?
Sorry?
When will you have the numbers of the costs?
So what this RFQ is doing is if you so choose to approve this morning, we'll design the
Okay.
shell, and then what we do is go out for an RFP, and we get the contractors to come back in, and then we'll get that process started. Then we'll have those numbers.
Okay, one more question. Do we have any other, our departments over there renting space here in the county? Do we have any other?
The DSS
All of them, they're at the DSS now?
Oh, we're trying to house everybody.
Yeah.
No, we're not in Irwin anymore.
No, we're not. All are in the same current space. They will eventually open Irwin again, but at this point, for the health department at least, they'll eventually want to open the Irwin site at some point, but they haven't done that as of today.
And the one thing that's really neat as far as this particular shell portion is going to house everybody, what you mentioned, in that one building. So this is going to be really good for the public just to have a one-stop shop for DSS.
Well, I understand that, but that was the reason why the second floor was built, so that we could house most of the different agencies in that department and all. And it has been very successful with bringing all those people from Irving and Dunn. Oh my God, we spent thousands of dollars renting space for those employees. And now when I drive by there and see all those cars sitting out there, it was certainly a success that for us to agree to doing that. And a district here seems to be the same thing because we still need the space there.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, comments? Pleasure of the board to add this for approval. For approval as well, Madam Clerk. Thank you all. And discuss a request to adopt a resolution authorizing investment of idle funds with NC class. Ms. Kimberly Honeycutt.
Do I need to go down there or do I see?
You may speak from
This
your
is
seat.
weird. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners of the Board. Before you, item number 14 is actually a request for your review and approval, if you so inclined to do so, a resolution that will authorize me to invest the county's idle funds into a new depository. Now, General Statute 159 is very specific about what the finance officer, what counties can invest local funds in. And I think, as we have discussed in previous sessions, it's very restrictive. So we have that to follow. But also contained within that statute is a requirement that you, as the board, approve any institution that the idle funds are deposited into. So we have an opportunity to invest in a new pool. It's called NC Class for short, but it actually stands for the North Carolina Cooperative Liquid Assets Security System. That is an investment pool that is consisted only of local governments, and those are the only ones that can participate. The benefit of this one is that these funds are actually interest accrues daily. So right now, I just got an update from them, and the daily interest rate is at 5.43. It's up 5 basis points since yesterday. So as part of my investment of the county's funds, I try to establish a portfolio where it's distributed among different entities. And this is one of the ones that is safe. It lists securities that we can invest in. And so it's just another way to kind of support the local government, and the board is actually made up of local government officials. So it is for local government, by local government. And so it's just an investment pool, and I would request your consideration in approving a resolution to allow me to invest our funds.
Any questions or comments?
Just one question, Ms. Honeycutt. Now, what are the parameters regarding access to those funds should they become needed
Daily.
for something?
We have
Daily.
access to it, so it's very liquid.
Very good. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Pleasure of the board to ask this for approval next week as well.
I trust you, Kimberly.
Pardon?
Thank you.
We'll add this next week.
Well, I will just say that with the interest rates, I know the cost of everything is going up, but so are the interest rates. And as I have stated previously, the board has done an excellent job of allowing me, management, and the staff to bring ideas and suggestions to you to create, our capital plan, our budget process, a lot of things. And so one of the comments that I had made, don't look at it as spending, look at it as investing. So when we spend money, if we see that as an investment in our community, that allows us to start reinvesting our money and use that money to help. And I will say, just a quick calculation number right now, just for this does not include the project funds, just our general operating and our special revenue funds. We have earned over $7 million in interest income in this past year, which is, I see the eyebrows going up, but that is money that we have been able to turn around and put back into, the citizens, keeping our tax rate low, but also allowing us to move forward with your economic projects, with the planning projects and the retail that Coley has mentioned. So it's all coming together, I think.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Discuss a request for approval of fireworks permit for Campbell University football season. Larry Smith.
Good morning. I've got the fireworks application for Pyro East Coast Incorporated for Campbell's football season fireworks displays. They meet all the requirements, met all the fire code requirements, and these events will take place on August 31st, September 23rd, October 21st, and on Veterans Day. Any questions?
Questions or comments from us? Pleasure of the board to add to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And add this consent agenda for next week as well. Thank you. And discuss a request to increase signature authority for the county manager. Attorney Appel, please. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. So just quick background. 153A-12 grants the board the authority to sign off on any contracts, or you can delegate such authority to another individual to sign the contracts on behalf of the board. So historically, for the last however many, at least 5 years I can think of, in our budget ordinance, that authority for the county manager has been $100,000 on contracts. Now, as time has gone on, increased costs, construction and whatnot, all of our contracts have gotten more expensive. And so that $100,000 threshold is not covering as many contracts as in the past. You've heard multiple people come up here today with their normal operating contracts that are having to come for board approval. So what I want to discuss today with the board is possibly increasing Brent's authority to sign contracts, to increase it from the $100,000. If this board's inclined to do so, what I would present to you is an ordinance to amend the delegation of contracting authority. So I'd present that to you and plug in the number that this board decides to grant. Now, in looking at a number, I know in the past, and talking with Kimberly, there was a previous amount for previous managers of $500,000. Now, $500,000 would cover a number of our contracts. So that way we can increase efficiency, get these contracts through, especially for our normal operating contracts. And if the board were to increase this authority up to $500,000 or whatever number you're comfortable with, I just want the public to understand is no matter what, this goes through a rigorous review process. So it starts with the department and their admin. Then it goes to finance and procurement to make sure it meets all those standards. Then it goes through legal, and then it goes through the county manager's office. So there is multiple levels to where these contracts get approved to make sure they're legally sufficient, that we have the funds, that it's a good project, and so on. Also, it would never prevent from Mr. Trout from coming before the board to update you all on any major contracts. Now, another aspect too is even if you increase the authority up to $500,000, there are certain things that cannot be delegated. So under 143-129A, any projects are in the formal bidding range does require board approval. So for purchase contracts, purchase of items, the formal range begins at $90,000, and then construction is $500,000. So if you're talking about purchase contracts, even if you delegate authority above the 100,000, any formal bidding process for purchase contracts would have to come before the board for approval for anything over $90,000, and then again, construction would be $500,000. So. Want to discuss with you what the appropriate number would be if it's above $100,000. Again, from the legal standpoint, I would recommend $500,000, but at a minimum, I would say at least $250,000. So that way we can increase efficiency and not have to wait for the process of the 2-week process to be able to approve some of these contracts.
Questions or comments? You guys like the
I have a
dollar
question.
amount anybody's thinking about?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we're increasing, you said that we can increase it up to $500,000. Right now it's what, $250,000?
Right now it's $100,000.
$100,000.
It's been $100,000 for I think the last 4 or 5 years or so, at least in our budget ordinance.
Yeah, because
So
it has come before us before, increasing it. And that increase, if whatever we decide, that would be totally up to the manager?
So the board can delegate whatever number you want, the board wants to delegate. You can delegate the authority. Of course, there are some exceptions to that, like I mentioned with the formal bidding process. But you, as a board under 153A-12, have the authority to grant whatever delegation to the county manager that you so choose, that you feel comfortable with.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Whatever we decide here, does he still have to come to us and let us know about the project?
So
and the cost of the project?
The board can put whatever parameters you want to on this. So you can not only do a dollar amount if you wanted to go up to $400,000 or $500,000, but say you want the county manager to make a report on any contract that's above 100,000, 200,000, wherever it may be. You can put parameters on that to make a report. It's however the board wants to handle. Again, this is just a matter of comfort level for the board of what you want to authority you wish to delegate to the county manager.
I'd like to recommend that we place this as a separate line item for more discussion next week. But if it's the pleasure of the board.
I agree. This has come before us before.
And just one other I forgot to mention, this will not change also our policy of any land use deals, where anything dealing with property transactions, that's always come before the board. This request will not change that. So any land deals would still come before the board.
We'll go ahead and add this as a separate line item. So dollar amounts as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, thank you. Discuss request to approve a resolution for a project to signalize the intersection of 401 and Rolls Church Road. Mr. Trout.
Thank you, Chairman. This morning we have an item that will be a nice improvement when accomplished with regards to our transportation system. The DOT has a project and has found funding for the signalization of the intersection of Rawls Church Road and Highway 401. They are seeking a resolution of support for that project to move forward, and we have identified that definitely as an area where a signalized intersection is desirable through our investigations. And as you know, it was also a condition for the approval of the Serenity development that a signalized intersection be created there at some point. So this is actually very encouraging because it could be still a number of years until we reach the level that's required within the development. In addition, we know that that intersection is zoned commercial, and that is likely that we will see commercial businesses based on information we have being created in that general area. So the traffic amounts are going to increase. Also, with the approval, it is looked at as being for design and actual construction. Could be about a year before this actually occurs. So even though we would approve, we would support this, it could still be a period of time, and we know we'll continue to see development in this area. So ask the board to consider approval of this resolution to support the signalization of the intersection at Rawls Church Road and Highway 401.
Questions or comments?
Let's put it on the consent agenda.
Yeah, it's much needed.
Pleasure of the board seems to be to add this for approval to the consent agenda next week. And the county manager's report, Mr. Trail.
Thank you. I have two items. The first one, excited about what will be going on in this building and downstairs next Thursday. We have the Community Day going on, August 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. It's a great opportunity. We'll have many of our county departments will have tables and booths out to provide information to the general public about what they do and what services they can provide. And in addition, we'll have other organizations that will be participating. There'll be some entertainment, there'll be food trucks, and a variety of other types of activities that'll be possible for the community to participate in. It's free to the public, and they stop on by. There's lots of giveaways that are being done by the different organizations that are participating. So should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a nice, This Thursday. Yep, this Thursday. So please, if you have an interest, please stop by. The last item I have is that Assistant County Manager Mike Morrow was able to contact Claire, and that based on the information, it appears that they'll be able to start producing IDs tomorrow when they're back from the conference. So it should be available. There'll be more information that we'll put out to make the public aware of that and the hours and so forth that they'll be available. But bottom line is we'll be able to start producing IDs tomorrow. That's all I have, Chairman.
Well, thank you. And I believe we have a need for a closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board go into closed session for the following purpose: to consult with the county's legal counsel in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege concerning the handling of certain litigation, including the following case: County of Harnett versus CAD Enterprises, Inc., Harnett County file, and I don't have the number. This motion's made pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Mr. Chairman, also would like to add a personnel matter.
A motion for a closed session?
Yes, so moved.
A motion and a second for closed session. Any discussion?
Made the motion. All you had to do was second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, we're in closed session.
I have no idea.
Motion in closed session to reconvene in open session. Now back in open session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion to adjourn. Chair will second. We're adjourned.